Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we will discuss a mains question for BPSC 68 mains from GS2 Polity section. So see, before answering the question, first you need to do three things. First, you have to read the question twice or thrice, at least twice or thrice, because without understanding the demand of the question, you cannot move in the right direction. And trust me, if you understand the question correctly, the half work is done. Answering the question is only half work, right? So you have to read the question at least twice or thrice and understand the question properly and its demand, right? The second thing you have to do is, in polity question you have to include articles, constitutional experts, advocates, big advocates or senior advocates name, or constitutional judgments by Supreme Court or High Court, important judgments, or you can even include the name of constitution makers, right? Like Dr. Ambedkar, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, B.N. Rao, etc. Right? So first you have to include articles, then constitutional experts like Casey, Weir, Grenville, Austin, and so on, because it will make your answer authentic, genuine, right, and contemporary. You can also quote the recent Supreme Court judgment, right? Okay, so now moving to the question. See, read the question. Question says that the provision of national emergency is constitutionally oriented towards a unitary setup, right? Explain. This is the first part of the question. You have to understand this is the first part of question. The second part of the question is mention 5 restrictions imposed by the constitutional amendment 44th to check misuse of proclamation of emergency. So this is the second part of the question. You have to divide this question in two parts. First, in the first part you have to answer the basic, the provision of national emergency and how it came and what is the purpose behind this, and then in second part you can answer directly the 5 restrictions, at least 5 restrictions imposed by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, which came in 1978 by Janata Party government, right? So first, see, any ideal answer should have 3 parts. First, introduction, as you know, then body, and then conclusion, right? Okay, so let's start with the introduction. Introduction, you can write about emergency or national emergency. You can say that is article 352. You have to mention this article because it makes you more authentic and it will give a good impression to the examiner that the student knows about the articles and all, right? So first you have to write about emergency. First you have to write about context or background, right? Introduction, you can write context or background of the question. So what is emergency, right? For what purpose it is there in constitution, and quote some quote by experts, right? It will give good impression introduction. So you have write about 1 page or less than 1 page in introduction, because you have to total write at least 4 to 5 pages, because the question is of 38 marks. So you have to write at least 4 to 5 pages, then only you will get some good marks. right? Then you have to move towards body part, right? Don't worry, I will give you model answer at the end. Ideal answer or model answer I will give you, through which you can understand, through which you can, make your own answer, right? So at the end I will give you model answer. In body you can write the impact of emergency on fundamental rights, on center state relations, right? Then the second part you have to include in the body itself. Second part is, again, read the questions, because you have to read at least twice or thrice the question. Second part says that mention 5 restrictions imposed by the Constitutional Amendment 44 to check misuse of proclamation of emergency. So in second part you have to write about 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978, which was brought in by Janata Party government, if you know that. And the provisions in this amendment to misuse the proclamation of national emergency. First you have to know the background of this amendment act. This amendment act brought in by the Janata Party government because in 1976 during emergency Mrs. Indira Gandhi government brought 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act and made wholesale changes in the Constitution, right? To undo this change, undo the changes by 42nd Amendment Act, the Janata Party government brought 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, and you have to discuss about this very Amendment Act and its provisions, right? At least 5 related to emergency. There were so many other about also, but you have to specifically talk about emergency provisions and how it restricted the misuse of emergency provisions. Okay, so we will discuss about that also. So first changes was, it was, see, earlier the emergency was directly imposed with the advice of Prime Minister, so it was changed to the written advice or recommendation from cabinet. So you have to get written advice from the cabinet, then only president can declare emergency, national emergency under article 32. Then the second, earlier you have to get parliamentary approval within 2 months, but now it has been changed to 1 month. So from 2 months to 1 month. Within 1 month you have to get parliamentary approval. right? So this was the major change. The third was simple majority to special majority. See, earlier it was like you have to get simple majority, just 50% of the member present and voting. Now 50% of the total members plus 2/3 of present and voting, and also in certain cases 50% of the state's ratification, but with simple majority. In case of a state ratification, you need only simple majority, right? So again, it make imposing emergency tougher, because these are the tougher conditions, right? Then number 4 we will discuss about it, that is 44th Constitutional Amendment Act brought national emergency under judicial review. Earlier it was not there in the judicial review, right? So 44th Constitutional Amendment made it compulsory that any imposition of emergency will be reviewed by the judiciary, right? Then judiciary will decide whether it is right or wrong. Okay. Then one more changes came: internal disturbance to armed rebellion. This was removed and this was included. Earlier, on the ground of war, external aggression and internal disturbance, on these grounds the government can or could impose the emergency, but this was removed through 44th Amendment Act, and instead of this armed rebellion was included. Why? Because this is more clear term, right? Internal disturbance was vague term, so that's why it was removed, right? So we have already 5: internal disturbance 1, then judicial review 2, then simple majority to special majority 3, then 2 months to 1 month, and the written advice recommendation. So we have already written 5, right? Then finally you have to move towards conclusion. So in conclusion, please keep in mind it should be positive, optimistic and futuristic or forward looking, or sometimes if question demands requires, then you can also give way forward, right? So in this you can write that the Indian Constitution is how unique and misuse of emergency must not be there, right? Vision of founding fathers must be preserved, and so on, right? Now I will give you the model answer. Okay, so first see the introduction. I have written the introduction for you, and then body, and then conclusion. So first I have written there, see, read with me. As per Keshav here was the constitutional expert. The Indian Constitution is quasi-federal in nature quasi-federal? Because see, the Indian constitution is neither completely federal, neither completely unitary. It is somewhere in between, that is quasi-federal, right? So quasi-federal in nature, it is neither completely federal nor completely unitary. It is similar to the Constitution of Canada, where the constitution is federal with a strong center, right? Indian constitution is most similar to Canada. Then the provision of national emergency under Article 32, we have seen, I have mentioned the article, transforms the nature of the constitution from federal to unitary without actually amending the constitution. This kind of transformation of the political system from federal to unitary is unique to the Indian constitution, right? This is the very important point. Emergency provision is there. Why? According to Ambedkar, because it has to change federal to unitary setup. And why this was required? Because to protect the sovereignty, security, unity and integrity of the nation. So I mentioned there, this has been provided to safeguard India's sovereignty, unity and integrity, given the fissiparous tendency. Fissiparous tendency means to break away tendency of the some parts, like northeastern part, like Jammu and Kashmir, still there is some tendency. So our constitution makers decided to include this provision with many checks and balances, right? Checks and balances means restrictions. So no government can, make these changes based on their will. So they have to go through parliamentary approval, judicial review and so on, right? Now moving to the body. So see, I have included this introduction within one page. You can write this much introduction in one page. It must not be more than one page, because you have to write body, then conclusion also. So and it all must be adjusted within 4 to 5 pages. So moving to the body. अब बॉडी में हम लिखेंगे, देखिए, ग्राउंड्स ऑफ डिक्लेरेशन, यहाँ पे मैंने अंडरलाइन किया है. अब ग्राउंड्स ऑफ डिक्लेरेशन क्या हो सकता है? द प्रेसिडेंट कैन डिक्लेयर नेशनल इमरजेंसी व्हेन द सिक्योरिटी ऑफ इंडिया और पार्ट ऑफ इट इज थ्रेटन्ड बाय वॉर और एक्सटर्नल एग्रेशन और आर्म्ड रिबेलियन. However, the president can declare the same only when he gets written recommendations. Written recommendations. It is important because it was included through 44th Constitutional Amendment Act from the cabinet and not just from the prime minister. Additionally, it has to be ratified by the parliament with 1 month of the proclamation of the emergency. It has also reviewed by the judiciary to verify the intention behind imposing the same. It can last for an indefinite period unless it keeps on getting parliamentary approval every 6 months. See, emergency can last for indefinite period, but हर एक 6 महीने पर उनको पार्लियामेंट्री अप्रूवल देना पड़ेगा कंटिन्यूसली, राइट? ओके, सो नाउ मूविंग टू द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. अब इफेक्ट्स ऑफ नेशनल इमरजेंसी क्या होता है? तो पहला तो फंडामेंटल राइट्स पे क्या होता है? एज पर आर्टिकल 358, अगेन आई हैव मेंशन दिस आर्टिकल, सी, एज पर आर्टिकल 358 6 फंडामेंटल राइट्स अंडर आर्टिकल 19 में जानते हैं आपकी 19(1) A, B, C, D, E and G. These 6 fundamental rights आता है 19(1) A में, freedom of speech and expression. This gets automatically suspended. But when? Only when emergency is declared based on war or external aggression. अगर emergency war और external aggression के basis पे declare हुआ है, then ये automatically 19(1) A जो right to freedom of speech and expression होता है suspend हो जाएगा. लेकिन ये अगर आर्म्ड रिबेलियन के बेसिस पर हुआ है तब ये ऑटोमेटिकली सस्पेंड नहीं होगा, आपको याद रखना. देन मूविंग टू द अगेन अकॉर्डिंग टू आर्टिकल 359, अपार्ट फ्रॉम आर्टिकल 20 और 21, आर्टिकल 20 और 21 को छोड़ के सारे फंडामेंटल राइट जो हैं सस्पेंड हो जाते हैं. आपको याद रखना है कि आर्टिकल 20 और 21 सस्पेंड नहीं होता किसी भी कीमत पर. ये पहले होता था, लेकिन अगेन ये 4th अमेंडमेंट एक्ट में जोड़ा गया था, इसलिए आर्टिकल 20 और 21 कभी सस्पेंड नहीं होता है इमरजेंसी के दौरान. एनी लेजिस्लेटिव एंड एक्सिक्यूटिव एक्शंस टेकन ड्यूरिंग द इमरजेंसी कैन नॉट बी चैलेंज इन ए कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ. कोई भी डिसीजन इमरजेंसी के दौरान लिया गया है उसको आप कोर्ट में चैलेंज नहीं कर सकते, इवन इमरजेंसी खत्म हो जाए फिर. अब देखिए, इफेक्ट ऑन सेंट्रल स्टेट रिलेशन. सेंट्रल स्टेट रिलेशन पर क्या असर पड़ता है? तो एक्सिक्यूटिव क्षेत्र में क्या असर पड़ता है, लेजिस्लेटिव क्षेत्र में क्या असर पड़ता है, फाइनेंशियल क्षेत्र में क्या असर पड़ता है. इन एक्सिक्यूटिव रेल ड्यूरिंग अ नेशनल इमरजेंसी द सेंटर बिकम्स इंटाइटल टू गिव एक्सिक्यूटिव डायरेक्शंस टू स्टेट ऑन एनी मैटर. किसी भी मैटर पर सेंटर जो है स्टेट को डायरेक्शन दे सकता है. Hence the state governments are brought under the complete control of the center, right? Complete control. Then on legislative function, during an emergency, the parliament can make laws on any subject mentioned in the state list. Even though the legislative power of the state legislature is not suspended, the president can also issue ordinance to state subjects during the period. See, in Schedule 7, we have 3 lists: union list, state list, and then concurrent list. Right, concurrent list. So during emergency जो यूनियन सेंटर है वो स्टेट लिस्ट के भी सारे सब्जेक्ट पर कानून बना सकता है. राइट, कोई बाधा नहीं है, कोई रोक टोक नहीं होता. इसलिए ना बोलते हैं कि जो फेडरल सिस्टम है वो कम्प्लीटली यूनिटरी बन जाता है ड्यूरिंग इमरजेंसी. राइट, इसलिए. देन फाइनेंशियल इम्पैक्ट क्या होता है? द प्रेसिडेंट कैन आइदर रिड्यूस और कैंसिल द ट्रांसफर ऑफ फाइनेंसेस फ्रॉम द सेंटर टू द स्टेट सब्जेक्ट टू पार्लियामेंट्री अप्रूवल. प्रेसिडेंट जो है सेंटर द्वारा जो स्टेट को ट्रांसफ़र होता है वो पैसा उसमें उसको कमी कर सकते हैं या कम्प्लीटली उसको कैंसिल कर सकते हैं ड्यूरिंग इमरजेंसी. राइट, सो दिस आर द इम्पैक्ट. नाउ मूविंग टू द अदर पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. अदर पार्ट में है कि अब रेस्ट्रिक्शन जो इम्पोज किया गया था 44th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट 1978 के द्वारा वो क्या है. देखिए पहले तो इसका बैकग्राउंड थोड़ा लिख दिया है. 44th कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट एक्ट 1978 वाज ब्रॉट बाय द जनता पार्टी गवर्नमेंट टू अनडू द होलसेल चेंजेस डन बाय द 42nd कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट 1976 बाय मिसेस इंदिरा गांधी द गवर्नमेंट ड्यूरिंग द इमरजेंसी. सम ऑफ द प्रोविजंस आर एज फॉलोज. देखिए बैकग्राउंड क्या था, मैंने इसको लिख दिया है. अब जो 5 है उसको मेंशन कर देंगे. फ्रॉम इंटरनल डिस्टर्बेंस टू आर्म रिवेलियन, बिकॉज द इंटरनल डिस्टर्बेंस टर्म वाज वेग इन नेचर, it was changed to armed rebellion to give clarity while imposing the emergency. Right, again as I have already explained, from 2 months to 1 month duration को कर दिया गया. time difference between the proclamation of the emergency and its approval from parliament was reduced to 1 month from 2 months. right, emergency जब proclaim हुआ और parliamentary approval के बीच में 1 महीने से ज़्यादा का टाइम नहीं होना चाहिए. हाँ, पार्लियामेंट अगर सेशन डिज़ोल्व हो गया है तो जैसे ही पार्लियामेंट सेशन में आएगी उस दिन से लेके पहला सेशन से पहला डे से लेके और 30 दिन के भीतर यानी कि 1 मंथ के भीतर ही हो जाना चाहिए. अगर पार्लियामेंट डिज़ोल्व हो गया है तब, अगर डिज़ोल्व नहीं हुआ है तो विद इन 1 मंथ. इन द मिड टाइम आपको राज्यसभा से अप्रूवल लेना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. इट इज़ ऑल्सो प्रोवाइडेड काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रिक्टर चेक्स ऑन द एग्जीक्यूटिव. राइट. देन थर्ड में क्या है? रिटन रिकमेंडेशन फ्रॉम द कैबिनेट. ऑलरेडी आई हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट. Mandatory for the president to impose the emergency instead of just the prime minister advice. Then the fourth, simple majority to special majority. Simple majority से काम नहीं चलेगा, आपको स्पेशल मेजोरिटी लेना पड़ेगा. देन इंट्रोड्यूस जुडिशियल रिव्यू. 44th अमेंडमेंट जो है वो जुडिशियल रिव्यू को भी इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया. 38th अमेंडमेंट में ये कह दिया गया था कि इमरजेंसी के लिए जुडिशियल रिव्यू जरूरी नहीं है, लेकिन इसको ख़त्म कर दिया गया 44th अमेंडमेंट में और जुडिशियल रिव्यू को इम्पोर्टेंट और मैंडेटरी बना दिया गया. राइट. ओके, सो नाउ मूविंग टू द कंक्लूजन. सी कंक्लूजन शुड बी, ऑलरेडी हैव टोल्ड यू, पॉजिटिव, ऑप्टिमिस्टिक, फ्यूचरिस्टिक एंड फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग. इट शुड नॉट बी नेगेटिव. नेगेटिव नहीं होना चाहिए. नेगेटिव होगा तो एग्जामिनर का मूड खराब हो जाएगा कंक्लूजन में आके और आपके नंबर कम मिलेंगे. इसलिए कभी भी कंक्लूजन जो है वो नेगेटिव नहीं होना चाहिए. फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग होना चाहिए, हमेशा पॉजिटिव होना चाहिए. देखिए मैंने क्या लिखा है. इवन दो द प्रोविजन ऑफ नेशनल इमरजेंसी हैज बीन गिवन इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, इट शुड नॉट बी यूज्ड बेस्ड ऑन द विम्स एंड फैंसी ऑफ द एक्सिक्यूटिव. विम्स एंड फैंसी मतलब कि जैसा एक्सिक्यूटिव चाहे, जो भी गवर्नमेंट है जैसा उसका मन करे वैसा कर दें, वैसा नहीं होना चाहिए. इट वॉज रिक्वायर्ड टू पुट इन प्लेस स्ट्रिक्टर एंड टफर रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस टू मिनिमाइज फर्दर मिसयूज. 44th Constitutional Amendment Act did exactly the same. Thankfully, since then we have not seen any such circumstances and hopefully we will not see any misuse in the future as well. देखिए ये फ्यूचरिस्टिक है, थोड़ा पॉजिटिव आउटलुक है. The true nature of the Indian Republic must be preserved if it has to achieve the ideals enshrined in the Constitution. So ये भी फ्यूचरिस्टिक पॉजिटिव बात हो गया कि हमारा रिपब्लिक जो भारतीय गणराज्य है उसका जो अगर ओरिजिनल आइडिया जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकर ने दिया था उसको प्राप्त करना है तो इस सब मिसयूज पर ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा, उसको कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा. तो आप इस तरह से लिख सकते हैं. ये एक मॉडल आंसर है ऐसा नहीं है कि 100% आप इसको कॉपी कर सकते हैं, आप इसमें चाहें तो कुछ चेंज वगैरह भी कर सकते हैं, लेकिन ये मैंने आइडियल मॉडल आंसर दे दिया है ताकि आप इसके बेसिस पर अपना आंसर तैयार कर सकें, राइट। सो इस तरह से आप क्वेश्चन को आंसर कर सकते हैं, ठीक है। थैंक यू सो मच, वी विल मीट यू सून।